Once upon a time, long ago, there was a powerful ruler named Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh lived in a grand palace with tall columns, golden walls, and guards everywhere. Egypt was rich and strong, but there was a problem hidden behind all that power. Pharaoh had made the Israelites his slaves. The Israelites worked very hard every day. They carried heavy stones, built cities, and worked under the hot sun. They were tired, sad, and far from home. For many years, they cried out to God and asked Him to rescue them. And God heard their cries. God chose a man named Moses to help His people. Moses was kind, brave, and trusted God even when he felt afraid. God told Moses, "Go to Pharaoh and tell him to let my people go." So Moses went to Pharaoh's palace with his brother Aaron and said, "The God of Israel says, 'Let my people go.'" But Pharaoh crossed his arms and shook his head. "No," he said, "I will not let them go." Pharaoh thought he was more powerful than God, but he was wrong. God sent many signs, called plagues, to show Pharaoh that he was the one true God. Still, Pharaoh refused to listen. Finally, after one last terrible plague, Pharaoh became afraid and told Moses, "Go, take your people and leave Egypt." The Israelites packed quickly. They gathered their families, their food, and their belongings. After hundreds of years of slavery, they were finally free. They followed Moses out of Egypt, walking into the desert toward a new land God had promised them. At first, the people were joyful. They sang, laughed, and thanked God. They followed a pillar of cloud during the day and a pillar of fire at night that God used to guide them. But soon, Pharaoh changed his mind. He became angry. "Why did I let them go?" he shouted. "They are my workers." So Pharaoh gathered his army. He hitched his horses, polished his chariots, and sent his soldiers racing after the Israelites. The ground shook as the army charged forward. Meanwhile, the Israelites reached a place they did not expect, the Red Sea. In front of them was deep water, stretching far and wide. Behind them, they heard the sound of hooves, wheels, and shouting. Pharaoh's army was coming fast. The people panicked. They cried out, "Moses, why did you bring us here to die? We should have stayed in Egypt." Moses stood tall, even though his heart was pounding. He raised his voice and said, "Do not be afraid. Stand still and watch what God will do. The Lord will fight for you." Then God spoke to Moses and said, "Lift up your staff and stretch your hand over the sea." Moses stepped forward. He raised his staff high over the water, and then something incredible happened. A mighty wind began to blow. The wind grew stronger and stronger all through the night. The waters of the Red Sea began to move. They split apart, rising up like tall walls on both sides. The ground beneath became dry. God had made a path through the sea. Moses turned to the people and said, "Go forward." The Israelites walked between towering walls of water. Fish swam beside them. Waves shimmered above them. Children held their parents' hands. Everyone moved forward, on dry ground, right through the middle of the sea. Behind them, Pharaoh saw what was happening and shouted, "Follow them!" The Egyptian army raced into the sea after the Israelites. Their chariots rolled onto the dry path. But something felt wrong. The wheels began to wobble. The horses slowed. Confusion filled the army. Suddenly, the Egyptians realized the truth. "This is God," they cried. He is fighting for Israel. But it was too late. Once the lost Israelite reached the other side, God told Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea." Again. Moses obeyed. The walls of water came crashing down. The sea returned to its place, and Pharaoh's army was stopped. The Israelites were safe. On the far shore, the people stood in silence. Then joy burst out like a song. They laughed, cried, danced, and praised God. They had seen His power with their own eyes. Moses' sister Miriam picked up a tambourine, and the people sang, "The Lord is strong and mighty. He has saved us." The Red Sea was no longer just water. It was proof. Proof that God keeps His promises. Proof that God is stronger than any enemy. Proof that when there seems to be no way, God can make a way. The Israelites learned an important lesson that day. Even when they were scared, trapped, and unsure, God was still with them. He did not forget them. He did not abandon them. And this story is not just about the past. It is for us today. Sometimes, you might feel stuck. You might feel afraid, unsure, or like a problem is too big to fix. But the story of the Red Sea reminds us that God is bigger than fear. He is stronger than any obstacle. When you trust God and take one step forward, He can open paths you never thought possible. Just like He did at the Red Sea. And that is the story of Red Sea Showdown. Divine power versus Pharaoh. A story of courage, faith, and a God who always makes a way.